Okay. Okay, so welcome to how the work will begin today for restorative is going to be a nice mingling of chest openers, and then we'll kind of sweep into how our circulatory system is valued in restorative. So we'll play with that. So have a wall at your feet, and you want enough distance from the wall so that you can use a bolster, or if you got stacks of blankets, whatever you might have. But you want to be reclining on this prop of a large, bulky pillow, which bolsters most of us. And then you'll take a block, place it under your seat. And, you know, I've kind of observed some instruction in this where the block could be really high up right next to the bolster. Then you get to decide how high your bolster is. So get your movement of your head back on your blankets, and then, you know, do some fussing around, like scoot your hips down, keep your hips back, and just feel what is a rib cage. What feels valuable in the ribs for when you just set your bones, not even into the territory of deep breath yet. So notice, does your back feel cozy with this position? The spine might really like the back arch, and you'll be surprised how supporting it this way can help you create some space and length between the vertebrae. Okay, so the legs could stretch down if you find that's convenient. If it pushes you back and it's awkward, you can scoot your bolster back. You can push your block back and just accommodate. And then we have a sandbag, and we'll use that across the thigh lids. And when you're on your back, lifting sand around can be a little bit tough, but work with the setting of sand on the front of the legs. The legs can be bending and they can be descending. And if the spine is kind of sweeping into the muscles of the core, this is where I find them, they start to kind of merge together as spine, core. And then I reach around to find a belt, and I'll hold on to the belt with a real generous grasp. So it's wide, lots of width with the belt grasp. My arms are settled slightly on my blanket. Some of you might have longer arms, and there's no way they're on your blankets. And so let's come together focusing on the awareness of the extremities, both the feet, whether the feet are on the ground or the wall, and the emphasis of the arms, holding onto the belt, feeling if it's a grip, if it's slight, if it's intense, and gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. Closing your eyes. And just sense that merging of your back through the core, and the deep inhale filling the lungs. So if you notice that current of breathing, exhale, lengthening, and be purposeful with the inhale for 4 to 5 counts. And the exhale for 5 to 6 or more. With the weight of your head, relax back, even if you need to nod your head, as a reminder to stay relaxing with the neck. I guess even nodding your head would be activating. So if that initiates a process of feeling that you have sometimes tension in the neck, right, often, that you can work on letting the weight of it release back. And when you get the muscles in the upper body to feel where the hands are, gripping, and there's response in the chest, release the grip and then slide the arms down so they're either at cactus position, goalpost, or maybe they're even lower. It kind of depends on what's around your sides of your mat, right? What would distract you, but see if you can stay with your body sensation. I know the props have there's positives and negatives, right? They're distractions sometimes. So, and they're useful supports, but yeah, I would use your arm position by your side so that you can feel the current of circulation through your arms out into the hands, relaxing the fingers. Yeah, real pure and simple. We have the front lines of the body lengthening. And let's not lose, too much of that. So once you have the legs extending, let's all come back to a position, if you're already there, with the knees bending. And it could create a little more tip back in the pelvis towards the block. All right, so that's going to be a natural arch that will contour into our side sage. So this will be, a little bit of an intermediate study practice as far as how we're moving through quite a few things. So when we concentrate on the next shape, I want you to slide the sand and be sand free for this side sage, because it's shorter. We're going to do two of them today, one with sand, one without. But I want you to let your knees shift to one side and move your block. You're not going to need this block for this version, but you might need a ball. So let the spine feel that it slides down, the pelvis slides down, but roll to your left, and then take your arm pressure into the props, right? Arms push. So when I lean to my side, this isn't like a natural way you would do a push-up, right? Side push-up. I guess you would do side plank that way, but I want you to work for a moment with getting that ball or a block on the inside of the right leg, something touching on the inside to help your balance. The reason I want your leg to be in this bending position is that it helps create that arch you just had in your spine when you were lying on your block. You have a natural arch. So there's no block behind you. Well, there might be on the floor, but there's nothing intentionally touching your back. Okay, so now get the blanket stacked so they're still setting there. I'm going to put my top one up a little higher because I'm still kind of educating my vision on this one. Okay, so get your belt, and I would just take it so it's kind of a little bit more of a double folded belt, if that even makes sense. So you have a little bit thicker sensation. Now this can be kind of minor, meaning I can have my elbow on my blanket and my hands are holding, and I'm trying to open up my chest towards the ceiling, and my head is on my blanket and my elbow's on my blanket, like I said. So you're turning to work with the rib cage. Now, if you go, oh, this is adding my shoulder unnecessarily, then you don't go with the belt and you have your right arm open, like so. Or if you find, no, I can't do that, your arm is on your side. That's fine. So you have three versions, right? And they're all kind of interesting. Just trying without sand for, a good 45 seconds more. If you have the belt and you think you got to stretch farther back, don't. I don't like to say the word don't in a class, but you want to feel your left elbow bending on the ground, and the right arm is also bending, trying to open the chest towards the ceiling. Yeah, so give it just a few more moments. The ribs are probably feeling a little bit off track, right? So they're kind of they're getting derailed. Rib derailment here. Okay, so working with the space in the rib cage. Okay, let go of the belt or whatever shape you've created here. And then you're going to shift, and I want you to go right to the second side. So side sage, right hip down. It's a version of side sage. that has the use of opening the chest versus just stretching the side, okay? So now, and of course that might be for you, remember it's opening the chest, not so much just stretching the ribs on the side. For you, it might not be with this belt. So this could just be, you get a hold of the hunk of your belt, doesn't have to be perfectly folded, because mine didn't end up that way on the side. And then I just work towards opening the chest. Okay, so give some time. On the last class we had, we did a shoulder clock pose at the wall. And so I want you to kind of visualize that movement of the chest opening as if your elbow, left elbow, was that hand was at a wall and you were trying to push into that place to open the chest. This seems a little easier to address with the belt. And the spine is derailed, and it doesn't feel like it's on its right track, that you're helping hydrate between the discs because of the chest opener. So remember, chest openers are helpful for our spines. We give it a few more moments. I don't want to overdo this timing because we don't have sand on it. So we work on opening the chest. If the belt doesn't work, you've got your left arm either open or down by your side. So one of those three would be ideal. Not overhead, right? We're not trying to push the arm over to a block. It's open, so it's ribs. Okay, take a few more moments here. Good. It's just an exploration of working with a solid connection to the bolster, but adding a little different detail. Okay, roll back over to the right. And now let's come up so that we have our feet to the wall and our bolster right underneath us. And I think you'll want a blanket under your knees. Just slide one in. It might take you a moment to decide the exact spacing adjacent to the wall, but just come forward. So if the bolster's not in the most convenient place for your thighs, move it forward, but lower down so that you can bring your hands to cross. So it's like a crocodile pose. And let the ribs lengthen after the last pose. Try to make it cozy for your chest muscles as much as you can by using the ribs to press and bring some space. And maybe lower your head to your hands. So feeling the back, feeling the feet touch the wall, the legs put some energy pushing into the wall. Right, we want to promote that circulation through the muscles that bind around the spine. So push into the wall. Even if it's not your whole heel to your whole foot, it might just be the ball of the foot. Just push. Just enough, the knees relax down and breathe. Feel the breath through the back space, wrapped around the kind of the band of the rib cage, the rib band. The rib band is playing, it's musically inclined. Okay, now when you do lift your head, slide that blanket aside, palms down under the shoulder height. So it's just basically as I stretch the fingers open, I feel the elbows towards the sides, and then reach your head forward. Think about as you extend out of the core layers, the head moves front. This should feel okay for your neck to be in this type of pattern with your arms pushing. Now, when you push fully and the arms straighten, this might be another situation with your neck. Might be better, might be worse, but work on that alternating bending, lowering down to strengthen along the spine. Inhale. Exhale. It's hard to extend your exhale on this one. It's almost, it ends and that's it. So lower down, so you're not hovering, you're pushing into the bolster, you're using it. And then lift up. You're not levitating. Come back to table. Now we get rid of our bolster for the moment. So we're going to slide it. And just to give you a awareness, we are going to use it at the wall, legs up the wall pretty soon. So just tip it up next to the wall because you'll need it. Okay, now with our hands and the spacing of them a little wider than shoulder width apart, feet to the wall, find how you cruise into the health of cat-cow, the motions of arching and rounding your back. So feel when your hands press, what part of your hand pushes? Is it the achy heel of the hand? Or can you kind of spread out your fingers and the weight through them? And the inside line of the elbow usually kind of pumps up. The back muscles of the arms tighten up, right? When you have this type of position with your fingers spreading out. But give it a try. If it gets achy and difficult for your wrist, of course, you can always stretch your arms and lean back, okay? So try it out. The arms are toned. Round your back into cat. Chin moves towards your chest. And inhale, arch the spine. See if you can actually look forwards. Exhale, round the back. Feel that it's more than pushing the floor. It's curling the inside and rounding. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. So feel how the spine lengthens. Well, it's hard to feel exactly where it stretches, but take a moment when the spine moves both directions. So it feels like it just kind of, it's a repetitive exercise. So you just kind of go with the flow as if that's the only thing you know to repeat, right? Alternating, rounding, and arching. Okay, now we come back through table. Okay, we press into the hands and we lift up the knees and stretch the heels towards the floor, right at the base of the wall. If it's necessary to get your heels up the wall, that's fine. It might feel better for some. I find it's more pressure in my wrists if my heels go up. It just kind of dumps. It's like a wrist dump. So you decide. But when you feel that length in the back body, not just the legs, but the spine, okay, use the pressure of the weight of your spine to the brain, well, the brain, to elongate. Okay, and then shift forward, and I want you to step your right foot forward and get 2 blocks, and you can keep your left knee up or down on the blanket. My intention was to make this a low lunge, so the knee would be down for hip flexor, but if you find your knee needs to be up, it does, right? So when you pursue that movement of the thigh, lunging, feel the length in that left thigh with the knee moving forward, not over the toes, but it shifts forward. Okay, the hands are either on low blocks, mid-height, or all the way up. If you decide to go up to put your hands above your knee, you can come here, and then it does create kind of this slouch pattern in the hip joint. Some of us might really enjoy that deep stretch. I'm content with my hands down, but I don't work as hard with my thigh. That's very honest, right? I don't work quite as hard. If you don't want the knee on the blanket and you're just needing to protect it a bit, the wall is great because you can push back into the wall. That becomes kind of a foundation for the whole stretch. And then just kind of feel the curling of the knee, lowering it down. So it's hovering over the blanket. And step forward. Okay, step in, get a belt. Take your stance of your feet so they're as wide as hips distance, not as wide as the mat, but go wider if it feels better for your legs. And then, especially if you tend to be bow-legged and you can kind of see the curve starting in the foot, then you might have to take your feet a little wider so you can kind of stomp into a parallel position. Hold your belt behind you. You be courteous to your shoulders. So the wider you hold onto the belt, the easier it will start. So I go quite wide, and then I bring the belt back over towards my head. It might not get near my head, but my emphasis is on pretty wide. That does, I know, make it quite easy for some of us, and we want to make it more challenging. But see if you can stay with that width for the benefit of the very anterior part of your shoulder, right? So it's kind of rolling in if you were to stare at your shoulder at this moment. But feel that spreading out of the arms. And then if you can let the weight of your head release down. Just give it a few moments. Knees can be as bendy as you need them. They could be extendy or bendy. You choose. Take a few more breaths with those shoulders and chest working. Let go of the belt. Let the arms sweep down so they dangle. And you might prefer holding the back of the legs. You might find that touching the blocks and kind of getting a little bit of lift is better for your circulation if you feel a little woozy. So noticing the head below the heart does quite a bit of valuable work for our nervous system as well. And since we're trying to release stress, right, lowering down the weight of your head below the heart, might be too much, right, for some of us in the beginning. So you decide, but let's eventually kind of regroup our hands onto blocks. Okay, so set them beside your feet, and then toe heel your feet towards each other so they're pretty close, and step that right foot back. Remember, we're going low lunge for this one. So just the knee is down or the knee is up if you have the wall. Well, everyone has the wall supporting them. So if my knee is down, I suppose the wall is not, it doesn't integrate through my leg into my spine the same as if my knee was a little bit up. All right, but this is not as flexible in my hip flexor. Hip flexoring is not as hip flexoring. I'll make it up. If my knee is up, right? I don't feel that kind of scoop out this grippiness. So if you can tolerate knee down, I would go for it. But if it's not tolerable, you've got a variation for you there. But feel when the knee moves forward and the thigh stretches right at the band of that right leg. Yeah. Kind of visualize when we do this on our back. We'll do it soon. When we pull the knee in, we have the opposite leg down. It's the same work, but you have to flip it around when we do a lunge like this. And it's interesting how the circulation bounces back and forth with our legs. Let this affect your stomach area. Feel that stretch into the stomach. Lengthen out the thigh. Okay, now let's make our way back towards the wall. So you're going to shift back, take the left knee back, and then let's see where we're going to go with this. What I want you to do is make your way back to the wall with a bolster. So crawl away, your feet away from the wall, and take your bolster straight on down so it's flat next to the wall. Blanket goes back and towards about 3/4 of the way from the back to the wall. And then we'll side up to the actual connection of the bolster up to the wall. And we're going to take the legs up. So I want you to be very much on the side of your bolster before you swing the legs up. Make sure your sand is nearby. So to the side, this is one I think you just continuously play with how to get upside down. It still has interesting moments every once in a while for me. To perfect it. So when you use your feet at the wall and you find the weight of the pelvis, there's two body weights to help your spine stretch. It's the pelvis and then it's the shoulders, and everything in between is spinal. So if you scoot your bolster a little bit away, like, a couple centimeters, it might provide you with better balance. Good. All right. I'm even tempted to try to put a block on the other side just to see what that does. Try stuff out. Okay, get a sandbag. We know this is tried and true. Okay, so we take our sand and it's on the feet. Now, if you're working with your respiratory, you're always working with respiratory, but if you want to enhance that feature, for the stimulating the respiratory, the things working with vagus nerve and stuff, I find that the sand on the ribs is helpful, right? It's helpful for that calming, internalizing. But right now I'm happy with sand on my feet. So if you have two sandbags, feel free to add one to your ribs. Now, with the supply of movement that we've been balancing in our bones, feel if your elbows are out and the hands are straight back from the elbows. Be sure that the blanket is providing you plenty of support. If it's not, you can curl it up at the neck. Occasionally this legs up can kind of throw your spine top balance off, and you might think that you need less blanket, but a little bit more could be temporarily helpful to get you towards relaxing your throat. So I just curled my blanket a little bit at my neck. This doesn't work for everyone. Should be a warning for any class, right? Not everything works for everyone. But I'm trying to just get the right amount of stretch through my neck. So my throat feels like, yes, there's a little bit of circulation dynamic in the endocrine glands here in the thyroid. And so just holding the pose is what's doing the work. Right, that's taking the pose like a dose, right? You're kind of working your pose as providing you with a health benefit. So you stay in the pose and create that dynamic in your circulation to the heart and the lungs. Now, when the spine feels any movement, right, from the breath, there might be some supply of awareness in the spine spaces from the bolster to the all the way to the back, upper back of the lungs, right, that pushes into the ground. But for me, my breath experiencing is generally, if I could see it right in my peripheral vision in my rib space, that's right. Experience it. I think that's the experience of it because that's what I see. But you might work intentionally internally with sensing the focus in the upper back where most of the lungs live. Doesn't mean you have to tighten your breath up at the chest, but feel it spread through the ribs. So it radiates out. Bend the knees. Scoot the sand and the feet a little bit away from the wall, then a little bit more and more and more until you can bend it so you do a little leg press. You can feel the weight of the legs into the digestive tract. This is one of my favorite things to work towards, is this position. So I slide my blanket so it's not so chunky under my neck. And then I take the sand away. And once you're in this element of where do I go from here, right side or back, we're going to challenge ourselves a bit and go back. We're going to scoot back, but don't go so far back. So find the blanket, push it back, and strive to get back onto it again. So you're going to keep nudging yourself back and back and back until you have to redress yourself. And then when you go back, just have your feet at the wall. So that way you may have gone too far. Okay. This is always a experiment, isn't it? Sometimes to get these shapes. And I find the ball would be the best here between the knees, but some of you might need to use a block. So use either a ball or a block between the knees. And if you feel like if I'm not close enough, I would do a little bit of a test where you push into your feet, you do a little bit of a lift of your pelvis so you can identify the separation between spine and pelvis. That's just a start of a bridge pose. So if I kind of put my palms flat on the ground and just slide a little bit towards underneath each rear, there should be enough space there for your hand to just kind of get pushed. It's a little bit pushed by your rear, but slide that in. And then get a feel that you're a little bit tipped up with the hips. The lower abdomen should start to activate, although it feels kind of, I don't want to say dead, but it doesn't feel like it has a lot of response. Other parts are a little more responsive. So work with that, okay? Now, if you can keep the feet pushing, then you're probably close enough to the wall. If you have trouble pushing right now, then you need to get closer. So slide the hands out and then push into your feet. Again, you can always get closer if you feel you can't get enough massage through the back. Lift the hips up, push it through into the feet. You can always walk your feet up the wall. You can always go closer to the wall and then lower the spine down. All right, you can always walk the feet up and down when you do this. So we're going to either keep a blanket or not, you choose. And you're going to work on lifting the hips, let the arms go back overhead, stretch through. You can always put the blanket back in if you're not liking without it. So don't feel like you have to follow the main leader here. Just go with what feels better for your neck. Lift the hips though, so you're actually trying to lift them as if you're trying to get the leg to the torso straight up, vertical. That's kind of the emphasis here. It's going towards a shoulder stand, but we're not going to full shoulder stand pressure on your neck. No worries. Okay. So alternate the height that works for you. For some of us, it's going to be a little low. For some, we're going to push high. For some, we're going to walk the feet down or back up. Last time, luckily, there's always change, so you won't be stuck with one thing that you're doing for the whole class. So lower down. Notice what feels good in this lowering down. This might be your stomach is waking up now. Okay. Now, let's scoot the feet back down to the bolster. And I want you to scoot back again. So you're kind of massaging through the back a little bit, side to side. Okay, now feel your feet to the wall. So you know you can touch the wall, but this is not the same spacing that we just did. So we'll figure this one out. I want you to bring your feet onto your bolster first. Okay, hands by your hips. Feel the spine lengthen. So do a natural length of the spine without motioning and lifting the hips. Just let your spine press into the ground. You're not going to miss anything. Okay, so spine is centered, feet are on the bolster. Okay, now sense the feet they're 2 feet. I know you feel like you've got one kind of uni leg pattern pushing. As if it's like mechanical, you're pushing them both down at the same time, but they're 2 sides. So the body is even more interesting than mechanic, right? Although it's body mechanics, but You have to find a good balance here. Maybe your right side of your brain is doing different work than the left to use your legs. Just kidding, but push down into your feet. Try to keep the spine lengthening, okay? And now you'll press into the back itself, okay? And then bring your knees to your chest. Squeeze into the ball. Squeeze the ball or the block, whichever you have, squeeze in. And make it pretty fierce. You're squeezing, squeezing, squeezing until your legs get really warm. They're warm, warm, warm. Okay, your feet have nothing to do with it. They can't do any of the squeezing. It's your adductors. Okay, now remove the ball. Hopefully the knees won't knock into each other. And then you'll lower your feet. Then you're going to we're going to use sand on this one. So I want you to take your block, okay? We won't use sand in the beginning. So lift up the hips, slide the block under. So it's taught often that the block is under the buttocks more than under the sacrum. And that's kind of a murky instruction, I think. So what I want you to work on is first things first, just put your feet on the bolster. Put a block at the low or the second setting under the back of your pelvis. I think you can see this block. So mine's at the second. You could go to the low setting. There's not going to be a high setting version on this one. Well, you could, but I'm not going to instruct that path. So get a feel of that position first. Now bring the right knee up. This is why some people prefer the block lower. So bring the right leg up, stretch the left foot to the wall. Hip flexor, hooray time. Hip flexor, hooray. So I would be really demanding that your foot pushes into the wall. So if you're not close enough, reset yourself and do that. But when the right leg draws in, I don't know, does the block feel okay? Maybe you want it lower and try that idea. Maybe you need to scoot a little to the wall, just a tad. I don't know. My block kind of feels like it's almost going to flip or something, but it is down. The block is on the ground. So pull with the hands at the back of the leg, not under the knee. No straight leg on this one. Try to avoid that version of the position. Push into that left foot. Now, yes, if your foot was on the ground, you might get a little different hip flexor stretch. But get to the point where you could almost close your eyes and just kind of be and not be so forceful. So I know your left foot is pushing the wall. At least I kind of hope you are. Okay. But if you can start to blend into, if you relax a bit, it tends to be harder on your back. So feel that you are reinforcing that leg. First, you have something on your back right now. Okay, switch sides, right leg down, left leg in. Could be different energy on this hip flexor. Yes, we've done this before with a bolster under our back. So it's a little different. Now, if you find that you drop down a little easier in this front thigh, the right leg, and the left leg draws in a different range, it's interesting. Some different fibers in the flexors on the psoas are stretching. Okay, you've got to decide how much you push into the wall. For some of us, it might be just the ball of the foot that pushes. Some it's going to be like the whole foot. I imagine one side you felt a different imprint than the other. This would be good stuff to work on if you're having some hip flexor issues. This whole front leg area gets a catch. It gets gripped up. I think there's a few of us that have this going on, this kind of hip flexor thing. Summer months probably more so because we're out walking more. This gets, gripped up repetitively over and over. Okay, now when you catch that left leg, now let both legs stretch down and you decide, okay, got my block second height. Pretty good. I'm going to use my sand across the thigh lids. Like when we started, we used this approach. So now when you have this version, there might be some areas you are frustrated with. It could happen. So I would get your shoulders so they move back, but you're not like on your shoulders, you're really on the arm pieces, right? So I'm trying to get my elbows by my side. So I roll them kind of down and in towards my sides. Palms are relaxed, sort of. They're turned open, but it is a little bit of a funny feeling about trying to relax them. Because you kind of have them behind your back a little bit, even though they're beside you. They have that energy of they're pulled back. So focus on how good that could be for your shoulders, moving them back. Head is on a blanket, or if you decide no blanket, you can slide it away. Push into the wall with your feet. And then find the exact amount of energy that you need to do that. Maybe it's 25%. And then let the bolster support you. Breathe a few moments. Okay, now feeling the feet touching the wall. Notice that you make an imprint with the ball of the foot. That's probably the dominant print. Okay, so measure that in your awareness that it's as balanced as possible. So connected to the big toe. You know, if you really feel that arch, sorry, the ball, you can feel that line of connection to the base. You know, if you really were to feel those bones, there's so many bones in your feet. You know, it's fun to just bring focus to the wall with the feet, or the feet of the wall. Okay, if you're slumping in one foot more than the other, do the work, right? You can't do it standing as easily as you can on your back at the wall, with your feet at the wall. You can work on balancing it out a little easier here, because you don't have the whole weight of your body on the feet. Okay. Slide the sand away. Yeah, this right now is like a little blend of basic standing, feet to the wall. And now walk the feet up onto the bolster, knees perk up, and feel if the feet push, or how you get your energy to design the circulation in the back of the legs to lift up the hips. I want you to be a little careful here. So you want to feel that you push into your feet and you lift your hips up and you slide your block away. And your only care in the world here is spine lowers slowly. Okay, feel the spine lower down. And once you meet the ground, windshield wiper the knees side to side, let the feet stay on the bolster, spread the arms open, straight out to the sides. And if you don't feel like you're perfectly on the bolster with your feet, you could scoot closer to the bolster. You might just see what you can get out of accepting where you are with it, though. I think that to me is my lesson. Like, I know I can make it better. I can get closer. I'm feeling straight away from the bolster, but feel the sway of the legs and the impression on the line of energy from the hip through to the side flush, the lateral leg pieces. You're more than leg pieces, but you know, we are getting in the leg pieces. And then feet together, knees out. Another one where you may wish you were closer to the bolster, but notice if the reason why you want to get closer is because of something that's painful, then you do get closer. If your back is getting grippy, bring your knees up, slide closer, then add the pose. You could slide blocks in under the pelvis, but just know we won't be here very long. Take the position so you really feel how the feet are slid together, so it's not the big toe side anymore. It's the little toe side of the foot that touches. So it's cobbler's pose, right? You kind of have the foot in a little bit of a bowl, a foot bowl. There you go. Never thought of that, a foot bowl. All right, now bring the knees to point up and reach the feet like your feet are hands. Use your feet to push your bolster to the right side of your mat. And let's take that bolster to the right side and take a crossover. So I want your crossover to be, very thick in the mid muscles of the body. So use the wall with your right foot, even if it's just to get you going. Lift up the left leg. Remember when we held the knee into the chest? Feel what it's like for that leg piece from the seat to the knee to point itself up. Right? Use its extremity. I know you think of your arms as the main ones, but your leg, get it working. You never know when you're going to need to use it like an arm. And then cross it over to the right. You might find that your lower leg swings further, the foot swings further than the knee. So your focus is on your back reaching. So roll to the right. Now you're kind of rolling in the back, but you're limited because you want your chest to open. So ball to the sacrum, maybe a sandbag on the outer leg, just maybe. You get to decide. If it feels like the hip is the best place for the sand, add it. If you want the bolster to be farther over and you got room for it, you could push it out. But that extending kind of spread of the muscles is really what we're working with, trying to stretch it apart, okay? But come back to that necessary breath in and releasing out. Right head can roll to the left. Nice work. So feeling as we focus on the rotation through the hip and the spine. And let your head roll back into center. And then removing the attachments to the pose, right? Which would be the ball, the sand. The bolster might remain for a few moments. You might feel kind of some comfort in guiding that leg, the left leg, back to point up. And then I sometimes like to take reclining pigeon here between the two sides and bring the right leg in towards the left foot. So you simply cross the foot to the right knee and hug the right leg in. If it squeezes your knee on the left side and you notice that's not quite the angle that you appreciate, you could let the right foot be on the ground and then work on this inner left leg stretch. I like this a lot. It's just not something I'm getting to do very often. So I'm just working on, again, a little part of the hip flexor and letting that left knee open. Just be careful that the ankle is not, uncomfortably seized here. So I just feel that inner leg. It's kind of like a prep for a lotus pose, isn't it? As far as the angle, but we aren't going to be pulling our foot into our hip joint. That would be when you kind of start cranking the knee around. Get a hold of your bolster, maybe with your hands this time. Cross it to the left side of your mat. And then I'm just going to scoop myself to the right side of my mat. So I've got a little better base. And then as the right leg is crossing over, I've got to unhook my left foot first, left foot to the wall, cross the right leg to the left. And yeah, if you get real schmoozy with your hip and you roll too much, then you're not doing the pose accurate because your chest should be open. So, get your way over there, kind of roll into that left rib cage, and then get your props, especially your ball. If you have one, I would put one. So it tucks just to the base of my spine and to the buttocks, right? So I kind of find where I can push it in there. It's not uncomfortable. I do roll back onto it a little bit so that I can help stretch my torso. Yeah, this is good. It's even a good thing to roll on, right? If you're face down, right onto that ball, and just massage into the digestive tract. That's a good one too. To do that more often. Okay. All right. So open out the right arm and roll your head, or don't. If it doesn't feel good on your neck to turn your head, don't. Some might even feel the head going the opposite direction of the arm feels good. So maybe you go side to side and you land and then semi-turned. And feel where the chest is opening, feel where the spine is both arching and twisting. Like you get multiple pose patterns in one shape and multiple layers. Breathing slow. Empty the lungs on each out breath. And possibly enjoy that sensation in the hip stretch. I get a feel where there's some nice length occurring through the side of that right leg. So slide the ball away. I think going back to that reclining pigeon, I like that. So I don't know how many of you exactly did that one, but I'll give a moment here to pause between the next shape, rolling onto the back, right foot hooks to left knee. And I just let that foot kind of hook to the knee so that I can adjust the hold of the back of the left leg towards me. So it is a nice layer of pressure into your hip. Some of these patterns we create for balance. It's kind of fun to work through. Yeah, the left leg could be bent, it could be straight up to the ceiling, it could be either version. And again, I like the foot on the ground version with the knee open. I think this is probably the best for my circulation situation, my joints. Yep. I think you get layers of feeling the hip. It feels good. It feels like you really quench it. But then when you come out of it, I don't know if you feel a big change. So I think some of these, they look like a little more basic elementary shapes. Like is there anything happening? And I think the longer you practice, some of these really small, minute awareness patterns become bigger and more interesting. The subtle is very useful. Now, not so subtle, Bring the knees into the chest, hold the back of the legs, and let the legs kind of have a little bit of a leg tantrum, a little bit of dead bug here. And as you, I don't see any dead bugs on the ground, but me on the dead bug. Okay, hold the back of the legs, and we're going to roll up, hopefully. So come on up and find your sitting shape, your sitting boat shape. So you're not on the sitting bones per se, but feel when you clutch the back of your legs and you lift your feet, and just noticing, you know, how you squirm around the amount of circulation required just to lift your feet up. Hip flexors have all been kind of loosened, so now they're wondering what they're up for at this point. Okay, so see if you can get your feet at the wall. I think we're near a wall. Okay, so feet are at the wall, the feet are up. I think you can see me. My bolster's not in the way. Little thing. In the way. Maybe sort of. Okay, so feet are at the wall. Now I have to hold the back of my legs so my hip flexors don't truly get upset. Okay, I could try to do it without, but it just inflames it. So use the arms so strongly that you're pulling yourself upright and your knees are bending, right? The legs are not straight like so, the knees are bending. So you're trying to use your leg power to push into the wall. This is the important part, legs push into the wall, sitting. So now feel if you can reach your arms towards the wall. Not to say it's easy, I know it's challenging to incorporate your legs to do the work. It's legs, 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 okay? I know your mid-body's trying to get interested in helping you out, but it won't do as much as your legs. Now, the work isn't trying to move them off the wall without causing any uncomfortable events here. So what I want you to do is lean a little bit back. Okay, hold the legs because we're going back to elementary on it again. Hold the legs, use your arms now a lot, and then pull the legs towards your shoulders, okay? Pull into your shoulders, we're sort of with it, right? I'm kind of with it. And then bring your legs to the wall on their own. So I'm gonna let go, arms are in the air, and push my feet to the wall. I know it's not far. So do this a few times where you pull the legs, you don't have to lean back further. And then you bring your feet to the wall, your arms are forward of the shoulders, shoulder height. They might swing up a bit, I suppose, but pull, use your lower abdomen, push the wall. Only 25 more. Oh. Okay, where do you feel the lower abdomen? It's probably with this push. Okay, now bring the hands to the legs, lower the feet. Turn around. I mentioned we're going back to this journey with the legs one more time. This time, no blanket needed. Get some blocks. Take a moment where your knees are up. So I want you to have hands about a little wider than the shoulder width. Lift up your knees. Now, with that strength that we just recruit in the mid-body, yeah, kind of evaluate what's going on in that mid-body when you push back to a down dog. Feel the lower and the middle abdomen. It's pretty awake there. In the back might even feel more awake. So let the spine, in the wake of the poses, right? Feel the spine circulation. Or just feel breath, that's okay. Okay. Now, come forward like you were going towards a plank position, like kind of like a push-up, but instead you're going to step the right foot one more time, but put your blocks in at the highest setting. And we're going to let the left heel reach to the base of the wall so the heel is down. Okay, my right leg it's getting straight. It's trying to straighten itself out, but I'm just going to give it some time. Okay, so give that leg some awareness. Now bend your right knee. Again, taking these instructions to what works for you. I have to give some sort of instructions, so some of them will work well. Now my back foot is parallel, but doesn't really like it. If I try to stand up, I'll probably fall over. So I'm going to turn my back foot a little bit out to the left. My heel is still at the base of the wall. Okay. I'm using my muscles in the underside of this right leg, although they went to sleep for a moment there, and I'm coming up. straighten things up. And feel your knee moving away from the wall, the right knee. Left leg is not moving away from the wall, but right knee is bending. Okay. Now, so if you're not sure, what is her angle? Okay, I'll just kind of turn so you can see at least these bones from the waist down to the foot. So my back foot gets a little turned out. My right knee is forward like a warrior one stance. Okay. So the angle of the circulation in your legs, it's impactful in the glute. A lot of impact in your right glute. Okay. Now swing the arms forward. They could go to the ceiling. Maybe they don't touch the ceiling, but feel your arms action. Make sure your right foot doesn't turn in. And lift the arms up, maybe 3/4 of the way is fine. Okay. Now make sure the knee is not trying to cruise over the ankle or the right foot. It's just lifted up. Stabilize around that right thigh. Circulate around the thigh. And then lunge. So you're lengthening away from the wall. Hands go down to the blocks. Right leg is in that bend. And then I want you to sweep the leg back. Well, not up in the air, but straighten the right leg like we did earlier. And then I want you to try to pivot the back foot to parallel again. Try to lengthen the back leg or the foot so it's the toes face forward. Then our blocks come in a little bit so they're under our shoulders. And then the right hand to the sacrum. Try to keep that right leg steady so you not just flip over and turn the waist to the right. Right. So we're working into that hip, that right hip. Yeah, kind of carefully getting back into our bones here. Just sneaking it in. Yeah, if it feels like, oh, it's a lot of awareness, that's good. I think that could be what we get out of it is awareness. Okay, now the right arm stays down for today's purpose. So you can work on this right leg muscular reach. So you might even kind of touch towards your hip and go, okay, I'm trying to get my hip to move. Its directional energy is back. It's not going to swing me around to fall over, but I'm trying to keep the energy of the leg pretty straight. Micro bend might be best for some of us who tend to kind of push back too far behind the knee. So get a feel for that turn and the length of that right leg. I try to suck up my quadricep, so above my kneecap, it creates a real current of strength. That's what I like to work with on this one, but my left calf is feeling it. Okay, lower the right hand down, good. Get the waist back to center, okay? And the wrist has to adapt on the left side. Breathing. Okay, try to work with this on a slight bend of the right knee. So a little bend, a little step with the left foot. Take a moment here in between. So if you feel like you need to let the spine lower down and stretch out the legs, that's fine. Some of you will be just fine stretching your right foot back right away. So I would just try to keep the muscles around the feet, above the feet, I guess there's a muscle in the foot, but above the foot into the calf. That's why the calves are so tight. It's like the base muscle there, right? And all the bones on the foot are having to rely on the calf. No wonder it's a little bit tough in the lower leg. So adapt for a moment just with the simplicity of the back foot parallel, left, both feet parallel. And maybe you step your back foot a little bit out to the right so it's easier for you to adapt with your flexibility. That's okay. So I'm just kind of waking up my legs and steeping the legs. Turn the right foot a little bit out, bend the left knee, and then kind of in one sweep, you might be able to get your arms to help you come up. Remember, it's almost as if the more very specific, concrete shapes we create, in some way, is probably more meaningful to the bones, right? So I don't want to kind of whip us into a bunch of different poses. want to stay really crisp with the motion for the muscle, just really clean. And if the arms go up and that's really helpful for you, or it brings you to feeling like you're performing better, you know, you might find that that's interesting for your breath. But only do it for yourself, right? If you decide you want to have your hands on your hips, you want your arms out, you want your arms dangling, just feel what is helping your body work with the heart and the muscles to sustain the shape, because the heart rate will go up on this a little bit. Your muscles are toning, right? That's exactly what happens in the heart, right? So when you feel that lunge, be a little careful about the push of the ribs, right? So I try to use my right hip flexor so much here because this is my habit. I tend to tank, right? My belly drops, I push my ribs, so I'm trying to get my right front thigh to lengthen. All right, it's like I need to pull that back and lengthen the thigh, the hip flexor, that is. Okay, now I can keep lengthening it. I can lower down to my blocks, good. And then turn the back foot, toes forward, back heel is maybe at the wall. It might be up at the wall for some of us. That might just feel better. So, you know, be kind to yourself, how that works for you with your calf. But as you lengthen, you're trying to straighten out the left leg. So extended trunk pose. That's what this is translated as, extended trunk, Parsvottanasana. Okay, so the back leg might feel connected in some places and not like the left leg. This is all connected. The whole vine of the back of the leg is feeling like the button has been pushed, that it's working. Okay, it's good to find things working, huh? Some things are asleep and some things are awake. Okay, now feel how the back leg is responding into the lower bone. And then just bend that left knee. The back heel peels up and you lower down into that right leg. And just get a moment here. I want you to take a moment to establish. Now lift up the back knee again. Press the heel towards the ground. Bring your left hand to your sacrum and try to take that turn. Now, if your back heel is lifting, like mine is starting to go up, that's okay, let it lift. And if your block feels too far away with the right hand, it's probably better you have a little bit of openness with your armpit than if you pull it too far back like this, or it's too close in. You want to kind of work where there's a little challenge and then take that turn with the waist to the left. If you don't want to turn, you don't have to. But the left leg is trying to be straight. I mean, mine is trying to bend, but I would like to straighten it out and feel that stretch through the outer left leg. It's only temporary. Okay, take a few more breaths here. It feels good to do this work though. It's pretty, it really seizes the body sensations. Now I turn back towards the belly button towards the ground. And then as you bend through that left knee, lower down and take a reach back with your left leg. And then I want you to take your block. So there's one overhead or on the other side above your head to that side, not over up on the ceiling, but this direction. Take a blanket stack, then a bolster, and set up for side stage with sand. Okay. So after that length, what we're going to do is use all the items we're used to for this pose that we've done in the past. So you have a couple blankets that could be stacked like that. You could have the top blanket folded up a little higher, okay? So add sand to your hip this time after that leg work, and then feel where that arm reaches overhead. Where's my block? Okay. Some of you will use a block and some won't, I have a feeling. Some of you will have your arm onto the side or down on the bolster, wherever it's comfortable. If this hurts to put your arm overhead, don't put it. Now, if it's kind of not comfortable, have the block higher. Usually helps. Seems like it's more advanced, but it makes it a little easier. You could even stack 2 blocks to make it cozy best. Okay, now settle. Feel the circulation through the side. Let the weight of the sand, wherever you choose to have it at first, if you choose to change where it is, you can always move it onto the ribs or closer to the hip. Okay, now as you lower the arm down, want us to take a moment where the knees are going to move the opposite direction between sides. So you'll slide your sand away. And if you prefer, actually, let's keep it on recline. So we'll push into our bolster, and yeah, this will work good. Okay, it's kind of nice to be. This is just nice on the nervous system. So turn the bolster so it's up on the blankets. Mine's a little high, but that's gonna be fine. And then I'll move my knees outward, so feet together. Guess I'll be okay without 2 blocks. So I used a block under my legs. So when I lower back, I've got the knees out, the feet together. If you decide, no, not for me, I need a block under each thigh, you get the other block, place it under each leg. You might be able to adapt with your sand. That actually adapts kind of interesting. They look the same, but they feel so different. And you could also use that ball, that kind of thing too. But take a moment when the leg muscles have direction external. Okay, if it's easier without anything, so it doesn't distract your focus. The farther in the feet doesn't necessarily make it harder. It might make it easier than if you push the feet farther down. But giving the direction of the thighs, external rotation, and the waist has this length. If we were to do this sitting on the bolster, I imagine our spines wouldn't have this much length. We would probably somehow round our back, just even a micro rounding. So whatever we can do to get length out of the spine. And this would be a good homework pose, with or without blocks. Feeling as you move your knees to point up, walk your feet towards your seat, and then you're going to use your back touching the bolster. Then roll. Now be careful, the tendency is to pop up, to sit up, and then go to the other side stage, but do what's challenging, right? Roll, then use your arms to turn to your right, and then take your bolster and shift it, right? You've got your ball, and you've got your sand, and you have bolster lands. That's what we are. We're in bolster land. Okay, and then you stretch over with your arm this direction, down or across. You have 3, I think there's 1, 2, there's about 4 directions you can go with your arm. And when you let your arm find a resting place, be sure that the chest is not getting the big stretch. I don't want you to focus on the chest. We did that earlier. So I want you to focus on the lateral to the side band, side spaces. And just gather your attention on the slow rhythm of breath. Now feeling that simple range in the hip. Doesn't seem like a big hip motion, but feel how the movement is through that left side beam of the waist, upper beam. And then even if your arm is down, you can focus on the breath in that side wave of the waist. And let's carry that through to the end here. So when we slide the sand away, again, try to roll into your ribs. Like think about, I know we tend to work on maybe the neck to lift first, but work on kind of those dense areas into the organs. So roll into the right, chin down, and then come up. It's challenging to move those ways. Come on up and then move your bolster forwards and scoot back so you got a little space from the wall. This one, let's not have our feet at the wall. Let's go against that one. So we'll have our two blocks in front and they're at the second setting. And then we'll put our bolster on top, straight across, so it's fully supported. One blanket on top. And if you happen to have multiple blankets at home, I would just keep stacking them on top of your bolster. So you have a really good height so your feet float. I wonder if this would work this way for me. How that would go. I haven't really tried that before. I wonder if that will work. Okay, we'll see. Okay, legs up on the bolster. They seem kind of stuck. I got to keep them in. And you could put sand across them. That's going to work. All right. Trying things randomly here. All right, so I know having your sand on the shins might be a worry because you have to get out of the post by yourself without someone removing them, but the sand, that might work out okay. Just learn how to access muscles when we get to that moment. So feeling where the back, once you get everything settled, where the back responds into the ground. Okay, maybe where the hands feel they're accepted to release. They might be by your sides. They might feel better farther out. We just want the arms so they're below the level of the heart. And so your heart rate can slow and regenerate. Feel the movement of the stomach expanding and contracting. And inviting that movement to radiate outwards, not just still in the abdomen with the breath, but through the stream of your back, all the way up the spine. Relaxing your chest and your shoulders. Now, if you have enough height under your head, it's likely comfortable for you to roll your head from side to side. Feeling where you put your weight on the back of your head. It's always the same crossing. It might always be a certain arch you have in your neck. So you might try feeling the neck lengthen, like you move your chin a little bit down. You keep the whole amount of your head on your blanket. You're not lifting off of it. Kind of feel how you can move your head a little bit to massage through the neck. It's definitely not pushing your chin up. That's not the direction we're aiming at the moment. Tempting to try it though, isn't it? Well, why not? I'd like to see. Get a feel when the head goes from one side to the next. And take the final few moments with that awareness of going from one side to the next and feeling your range of motion in the neck. Relax your eyes. Breathing slow. Feel the belly fill up. The diaphragm moves when you inhale. And as you exhale, you're basically strengthening that area with the controlled breath. The massage into the organs. Now, when we start to come out, I noticed this the last moment, felt like maybe this was my best pose today. Felt like I got my alignment pretty well centered, even though it appears to be a relaxation shape, feels quite true to balancing. So be a little cautious on moving that sand on the shins if you have it. One way you could do it is to push the sand with one leg over, and then it will just fall off. So then you don't end up, sorry about that thud, you don't end up tightening your back to get your sand off and you pulling your knees in. Not really a great thing to end with, right? Tightening your back. And then once the feet are just relaxed, before they get stepped on again, and just feel the feet kind of stretch to the bottom of the foot. And then bring your knees just a little bit closer to your middle by putting your heels onto the blanket. And then you might prefer to hug the knees in. You might prefer to roll to the side. Just kind of notice. You could approach knees to chest and feel, what does that do for your back? Maybe it feels like it stretches it. And hugging them, rocking them side to side. Legs are great helpers to stretch our backs. It's good to have them. And then roll to the side and let your hands bring you up. Or maybe it's your waist that gets you up to sitting. Take a moment of sitting on a blanket just so that we can connect. I feel like there is a collective here that meets for class. And so as we kind of let all the class experience kind of brew in our body, let your hands merge in front of your heart and bow in towards your heart center. Take a breath in, feeling the support in words to yourself and to others, and exhale, bowing into your heart. Namaste. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, all